This is episode number 24 of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast with me, Ben Larcombe. And my guest on the show today is the amazing Dora Kurimay. Dora is the author of the book Get Your Game Face On Like the Pros, which is available to buy on Amazon. She was also a member of the Hungarian national team as a cadet and a junior. Then she moved to the US, and since then she has studied sports psychology and become a mental performance coach. So she's ideally placed to give advice to table tennis players of all levels on the mental aspects of the game. In this episode, we'll be speaking a little bit about Dora's life and her career as a table tennis player. We'll get into the details of the book and some of the great tips that are in that. And we'll also be doing a Q&A session where I put some of your questions to Dora and get her responses to specific problems that you've been having with your table tennis. This is a really great interview, about 50 minutes long. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it and get loads of information from it. Let's get into the interview with Dora Kurimay. Joining me on the show today is Dora Kurimay. Hi, Dora.
Hi, Ben.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really great to have you on.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, you've been someone that ever since I started the show, I had you down on my list of people that I wanted to reach out to. So it's great to finally have you on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're relatively well known in the table tennis world. You were a very high level player as a junior, and then since then you've moved to the US and you've got involved in a lot of the things that are going on over there. I wonder if you can take us back to when you first started playing table tennis and how you did. I know you did very well as a cadet and a junior player over in Hungary. So yeah, please give us a bit of information about that.
So I started playing table tennis at age 7 or 8, and actually one of my cousins played table tennis as well, and that's how I started also playing table tennis. And I was in the national team in cadets and also in junior as well. And basically, I was traveling all over in Europe with the team and also played many tournaments. And the best results that I got or we got, it was that we won the Cadet European Championship in teams and also got second and third place in junior as well in teams. And also I was in top 10 in juniors when I was under age 18. And of course, I was in the national team. So basically, these are my results when I was playing in Hungary.
Yeah, now it sounds like the whole Hungarian squad and team must have been really strong back then. Was there a big group of players all around your age that were training really intensely?
Yes, there were many players who were playing intensively, and I think there were much more players who were playing actively before than now. Somehow there are fewer kids in table tennis or fewer players. I'm not sure why this happened.
How much back then were you training on a daily and a weekly basis? I assume you were still going to school, so you were fitting it all around your schoolwork as well.
Yes, so I was playing 4 hours after school every day, and usually during the weekends I had tournaments, and of course summertime and also during breaks we had training camps, so we had 5-6 hours training.
Yeah, so you're doing a huge amount of table tennis training, not so much just playing for fun and playing matches, but very kind of serious structured training. And then what happened next for you is quite interesting, because after about 10 years of that intensive table tennis, you then stopped playing, didn't you?
Yes, it's correct. I stopped playing. Actually, I had 5 years break, so I got accepted to the Hungarian university. It's called the Larcombe University, and it's a really, really good university. And I got in the psychology program. And when I did that, I basically I stopped playing. I had to study a lot, but I also felt a little bit burned out. So it was definitely a change and a new basically daily basis.
Yeah, like your life must have just been so, like table tennis would have been such a big part of it, and then all of a sudden that was just gone completely, and you just stopped playing.
Yes. But yes, well, this is correct. But also, actually, I had stopped playing before as well, a couple of times, but in a short period of time.
Okay.
So I had little breaks before as well. Yeah.
During your kind of junior career, sometimes you'd have a
Yes.
break. And this is something that I'd like to touch on briefly because I know the whole subject of early specialization in sport and burnout and dropout is something that generally gets covered in sports psychology, which you've gone on to specialize in. What are your views on that as someone that's gone through it themselves? Because they say that table tennis is an early specialization sport. So if you don't do all of that training at a young age, you're very unlikely to make it to a high level. But then it seems that very few players that go through 10 years of intensive training as a child are then able to continue enjoying it and wanting to keep going without getting burnt out. What are your views on that?
So basically, every player is different, and it's also affects what works for them the best. So one thing can work one player and another with another player, but what is a basic rule is you have to train, but also you need a recovery time, and you have to have basically resting time as well. And every player has to find what's this basically stress recovery time works for them the best. And of course, the coach has to know what's the best for the player and how they can have enough practice, but enough resting time or recovery time. And they have to combine that because there can be lots of training but and can have really good results, but in the long run, if it's too much and there is no resting time, the player can suffer physically, emotionally, and mentally from some burnout. So what would be really important for a player and a coach, and also for the team, because now there are, of course, teams that the professional teams have of course, not just a coach and the player, but even a masseuse and a sports psychologist and physiologist or nutritionist. So they have to sit down and really figure out what works the best for the player regarding training time and recovery time.
Yeah, sure. Do you think, looking back at your training and your table tennis as a junior, that you didn't get enough rest and that's why you got so burnt out? Or do you think it was just that you personally didn't enjoy it as much as some of the other players? What do you think it is that caused you to stop? Because I assume lots of people would have been expecting you to continue playing and to become a kind of top professional player maybe 5 years after you left the juniors.
I think I was not enjoying that much that time, and also I had the urge to also try different things. I mean, for example, I studied psychology, and I had a different daily routine afterwards. So to answer your question, I don't think I overtrained, but maybe it would have been better to have less training at once, so have
Okay.
more breaks, and of course have more recovery time. But it's really difficult to look back. And also I didn't go to I wasn't in homeschool. I was doing the same amount of work than normal students, and it was also a good high school. So it was difficult to study and playing in a high level. So I didn't have an easier schedule regarding school as well. Maybe it was also difficult to do both.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
So,
something that a lot of people struggle with.
so to answer your question, it might be with the school as well, that it was more difficult because there were two separate things, and both of them needed big amount of time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you really enjoyed the education, the academic side of things as well, didn't you? So you moved on and you've got 2 masters, is that right?
Yes, it's correct.
So you did at first you studied for a master's in psychology in Hungary.
Yes.
Then you moved to the US to do sports psychology.
Yes, it's correct.
When did you move to the US? What year was that?
It was 2006.
Okay, and what prompted that move?
So actually, I already wrote my thesis on sports psychology when I was studying psychology, while I was doing my master's degree. So I was already interested in sports psychology, and I knew that that time there was no available education to gain a master's degree in sports psychology. So I applied for a scholarship, and basically I won the scholarship to be able to study sports psychology.
And what was it about the sports psychology that particularly drew you in? Was it kind of what you'd learned from table tennis growing up as a child? Did that really lead you into sports psychology?
Actually, I was really interested. I was really interested in personality styles and traits as an athlete.
Okay.
So I really liked. Actually, while I was studying psychology, my favorite was personality psychology. But of course, I was always interested in performance enhancement, and what psychology techniques can help athletes to improve and also enjoy the game more as well, in the most difficult time as well. And so these were the areas that I was interested in.
And then it seems like from looking at your USATT rating history that then when you moved to the US, you got back into table tennis and started playing a bit and had a little bit of a comeback.
Yes, it was really interesting. So I started playing table tennis because I wanted to use the sports psychology techniques that I was studying on myself. And of course, I just wanted to have fun, and also I started coaching a little bit in the US for fun. And I didn't plan to compete in a high level or anything like that. But when I started playing again after 5 years, somehow it turned out I can still play well, and I even enjoyed playing more, and somehow I also improved in a different way because, of course, I was a smarter player than before.
Yeah. Now, I know that a lot of my listeners have played table tennis quite a lot when they were younger. Then they stopped for whatever reason, university or work, and they kind of come back later on, 5, 10, 15 years later, and try and get back into it. Have you got any advice for making a decent comeback? Was there anything that you particularly struggled with or found really helpful, having not played for such a long time?
Well, of course, be patient, and the movement it was really, really difficult. So the coordination, the small coordination was difficult. But my advice is be patient and enjoy the practice and the game. For me, somehow I changed my mindset when I started playing again. I played more for the fun. I was focusing more on the fun and really enjoying the game. And there was also no expectation. I started playing because I wanted to start playing. So
Yeah. Right. Well, it'd be good to talk now about your book, Get Your Game Face on Like the Pros, which came out May 2014. I know I read it last summer on holiday, and really, really enjoyed it. Now, you had a book that came out in 2012, didn't you? Also called Get Your Game Face On, and they're both selling on Amazon at the same time. Could you just explain the difference between the two books and why the second book? Because I know it can seem a little bit confusing that they both have the same title almost.
yeah, so the first book was really about just how to use your time between points. It covered 4 routines. And the second book came out because, of course, there are these 4 routines, but there are other things which is also really important. And of course, sports psychology covers even, more. So the second book was an extended version of the first book, and also covered more mental tips. And it also gives a more holistic view about how to improve your performance, which covers also other areas of your life as well.
Okay, so if people are looking to buy one of the books, they should buy the newest one. Does that pretty much cover everything that's said in the first book as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Get Your Game Face On Like the Pros, the newest one from 2014. That's the one to go out and buy.
Yeah, so it's an extended version. So it's whatever is included in the first version, it's also included this version, and there are more information about mental games as well, and also it gives basically a holistic view for every players that is important keep in their mind, and also these other facets of their life also improves, not improves, but affects their performance as well.
Yeah. Great. Well, obviously, if people want to really get into that, they should go out and buy the book and read all through it. But I was wondering if you could share just a few of your favorite points from the book that you feel are really valuable for people to know, and reasons why they'd want to go out and buy the rest of the book.
Um, so, well, I think the most important point that can really help table tennis players to improve their game is that everything is about there is a stimulus and a response. basically which runs their not runs there, but yes, runs athletes game and match as well. And the most important thing I think that really highlight the book, of course, is that there are many rituals that every athlete uses, and we are not even aware of these rituals or routines during the game. And the most important thing is how we react after a mistake, I would say, and how we handle that.
Okay, so this is talking about if let's say we hit a big forehand and we hit it straight off the end of the table. You're talking about what's important is how we react to the stimulus, and the stimulus is us hitting the ball off the end of the table.
Yes, how we react, I think, after a mistake, because everybody is playing well when they are making the points and doing well during a match. So what's really important is that when we miss a point, after that we could recover from that, so we don't get in a bad loop, basically. So so the stimulus would be the missing a point or missing an easy shot or not doing well.
I can't remember exactly the kind of process that you had in your book, but you had almost like a step-by-step process of what you need to do, which is kind of like to acknowledge what had happened, then to kind of put it out of your mind, focus on the next point. It's like creating a positive spiral of thoughts, isn't it?
Yes, it's correct. And I think also what athletes can gain from the book is really about, the first step is about really gaining self-awareness, because we are not even realize these things until we are focusing on these things. Until we are pointing these things out.
Yeah, and I always like to try and encourage people to film their matches, and I think this is one area where that can be important, because perhaps they don't realize that when they miss a shot, they have this really negative body language, or they kind of berate themselves every time they make a mistake. But if you're able to film and watch yourself back, then I think you do start to become aware of all those little habits that you've got into, and it's then that you can start to move forward and start to change them.
Absolutely. Yes, and also it's not happening from day one to day two. Of course, it's like a muscle or practicing a stroke. The athlete has to practice it till it becomes automatic.
Sure. Well, we're kind of whizzing through this quite fast, because I want to do the top tip now and then get straight into doing some of the Q&A questions that I've got from people coming in, which is something a bit different that I haven't done on the podcast before. But let's get straight into your top tip. So please, could you share with us, Dora, your number one tip that you think is really going to help all the listeners of this show with their table tennis?
The number one tip would be is how I said and I pointed out, is I think what really important is the mistake ritual. It's a behavioral pattern right after a mistake that helps to flash your mind and focus on the next point. So the number one tip would be create this mistake ritual, basically. And what really helps also is to do that, to focus on your breathing. So breathing also is part of the mistake ritual.
Breathing is something that I've heard quite a few different people talk about. You're talking about kind of deep breathing. Is that what you mean? Kind of.
Yes. Sorry. So yes, I mean that's the proper term for that. So yes, we call it deep breathing. Absolutely. Yes. So deep breathing is a really powerful technique right after the points happens, and especially when there is a mistake during a game, or the player miss a shot.
Yeah. Now, I think there's probably a good chance that a lot of people listening don't know that much about deep breathing. It's something that I've briefly looked into, but never really actually tried to get my head around and implement myself in anything. I've read enough things to think that
So
this deep breathing is important.
What did you read about it?
So it actually started with doing podcasts or giving presentations. I remember reading that the reason that you get kind of like a really dry mouth is partly due to not breathing deeply. So it was the idea that if you're a little bit nervous doing an interview or standing in front of people, you kind of take lots of shallow breaths, you start to hyperventilate, you then get a really dry mouth and you can't speak properly. And it was the idea that if you were able to relax and breathe deeply, then you'd feel better and you wouldn't get kind of symptoms like dry mouth, and you'd be able to perform better, even if it's just the performance of speaking, than if you were just to not think about it. So that was how I first started looking into it. But then I've later seen kind of, using it in table tennis. I also do a bit of running as well. And there are people who are talking about how you need to breathe deeply in running. But I've never really actually stopped and tried to work out how to start deep breathing.
Yes, we don't even realize that when we are nervous, when we are nervous, for example, during the game, we start breathing differently. How you said it's very shallow. But if we are aware of that we need deep breathing, basically is about take a deep breath through your nose, under your belly. So the breathing is going, that's why it's called deep, because it has to go under your belly and not just toward to your chest, into your chest. That's when your breathing is shallow, when you don't do a deep breathing, because when your breathing is shallow, your blood is not getting enough oxygen, so you can't even move that fast and you can't even speak that well. So that's why it's also so important to have a deep breathing under your belly. You hold your breath, and after you breathe out through your mouth, and the exhalation has to be longer than the inhalation, because an exhalation releases the tension. So basically, this is the deep breathing. But why don't you try it now? I can, I don't know, direct the whole process.
Oh, what, right now?
Yeah, or maybe not. Yeah, we can do it afterwards if you don't want to do it. So
I think right.
No pressure. No pressure. Or
let's give it a go now. And if I don't think it's podcast suitable, I can always cut it out. But if not, it can. If it's going to be useful for people, we can keep it in.
Okay. So I hope you are in a comfortable position.
Yep.
Okay. Now I mentioned you that deep breathing has to go under your belly. So before we start doing that, be aware of that when I'm saying please inhale through your nose, under your belly, that try to do a deep breathing, and you can check on that it's really a deep breathing or not if you put one of your palm, for example your right palm, on your chest and the left palm on your belly.
Okay.
And now breathe in through your nose, under your belly, hold it, and exhale through your mouth. Now again, breathe in through your nose, under your belly, and exhale through your mouth. And an exhalation has to be longer. Try it again. breathe in through your nose, under your belly, hold it, and exhale through your mouth. And an exhalation has to be longer. And when you are basically, when your palm is on your chest and the other one is on your belly, when you're breathing in and your lower palm is going up, that means that you're doing the breathing right.
Yeah, that was interesting because the first breath I did, I felt my chest kind of like come out, and then I had to like consciously, do the other thing, and then I started to feel that my chest wasn't moving and my stomach was moving.
Okay, so the second one was it was better.
Yeah, I mean, I got the hang of it after doing it wrong the first time. I think, yeah, it's like it's interesting. That's definitely something that I guess you just have to practice that on your own.
Yes. And so when you're doing deep breathing, the most important thing, the breathing has to go under your belly, and an exhalation has to be longer. So when the breathing is shallow, we forgot to exhale, and the next exhalation has to go through the mouth. So
okay, how many seconds would you say roughly for inhaling and exhaling?
well, I would say inhale like 3 seconds inhale, and exhale, or well, yes, 2 or 3 seconds inhale, hold it like 2 seconds, and exhale like 4 seconds.
Okay, and this is something to use not all the time, but kind of as a one-off in certain situations.
Yes, and of course this can be also much. It can be quicker as well. So it depends on the situation. But when we realize that we are holding our breath, or we are really nervous, doing a couple of deep breathing, it helps to release the tension.
Okay, so you could,
yeah,
you could just do 2 or 3 big deep breaths. That's only going to take 15 or 20 seconds, and then hopefully you'll be feeling better after that.
Yes, but actually when you play, it can be quicker as well, because there is no that much time for deep breathing. So it also depends on the situation.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to definitely try and keep doing that and learn how to do it properly. Hopefully that's been useful to people that are listening. Let's move on to the question and answer session, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So I should say that I sent out an email a couple of days ago to members on my email list on the Expert Table Tennis Academy, asking them to send in any questions they had for you. But the first question is coming from Larry Hodges, who I'm sure you are familiar with. He was on the podcast, how long ago? 4 or 5 episodes ago. And we were talking about a few different things. One thing that he said was that he would rather have a calm player with a clear mind than someone who's super talented or really good at tactics. Kind of what he valued most was someone who's able to be calm and clear their mind. I asked him the question of, well, in that case, how do we go about getting a clear mind? And he basically just says, ask Dora. He refused to give an answer. So Dora, how can we go about getting a clear mind when we play, so that we're able to play our best and react and be aware of everything that's going on?
Well, what I said, that's why I mentioned the mistake ritual, because I think this can really help to clear your mind. And it's about when clear the mind to, for example, I'm just giving an example, to turn away from the table, look at one point, and have a cue word that helps you to focus on the next point. And you can also combine this with a deep breathing. So, and even you can also visualize as well. So, answer your question again, everybody is different. So, different things works for different players. But clearing your mind is really about using visualization. I don't know if the listeners are familiar with visualization, but an athlete can just um, visualize what should be the next point, or visualize just a picture that helps to move on to the next point. And these things are important because it's kind of a distraction for yourself when you want to move on to the next point. But of course, when somebody loses their control, that's different, and that's why self-awareness and watching the video would be the first step, and realize what's happening exactly during the game and what's the pattern for the player.
Okay, so it's all about trying to move on from what's just happened and not dwelling on the previous point, really.
Exactly, because clearing your mind, and you play your best when you are in the moment, when you're not thinking about the past, which can be the mistake, and you're not thinking about the future that you are already worrying about worrying about the result, or winning or losing. You're just in the moment. When you are just in the moment and you are really just focusing on what you have to do, you basically clearing your mind. For example, if we are right now, we are talking, we are not, if we are not thinking about other things, we are really in the moment, so our mind is clear.
Okay, so actually this leads on really nicely into a few other questions about focus in general that came in from people. So Michael and Alex both asked questions that are kind of about, they know that it's important to stay focused in the moment, but they often find that that they're being distracted, or they're letting their mind wander about other things. So it might be thinking about what's going to happen if they win this match. They might be thinking about ranking points. They might be thinking about who they have to play in the next match, kind of things like that. So they're aware that when they're playing, they've moved away from being in the moment, and they're kind of asking, what are some techniques that are going to help them to just stay in the moment? And I guess you've touched on some of those already, but it might be good just to repeat them. If players are listening and they realize that when they're playing, they're often thinking about their next match, or how many ranking points they're going to get if they win or lose against people, and things like that. What are some things to help them to push all that to one side and just stay focused on the task at hand?
One of the things that can really help to create a cue word when they realize that's already happening, just create a cue word that they say to themselves. Okay, focus on the point, focus on the ball. So what they want to focus on, that's what they are telling themselves. That's one of the thing. And also, if they're really realizing their mind is wandering, also they can have a little time and just walk away from the table, again, take a deep breath, and really just use their cue word that can be the most useful for them. So basically, creating a cue word would be really important. Cue word means basically a word that really helps them to bounce back and keep their focus, and it can even just watch the ball or focus on the next point. Very, very simple things.
Okay, so cue word can be a word or a phrase, and it's just something that you come up with yourself that then you repeat over and over, and when you say it, it gets you to really focus on what's happening, right?
Yes, but because when you're saying it, you can't focus on the other thing.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it can just be something, it could literally just be the word focus.
Absolutely. It can be even just focus. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I like the idea of, you've said a few times, like turning away, like turning your back on the table, just kind of looking somewhere else.
Turning away from the table. Because it also, it's a movement, it's moving on from the next point. And for example, if you hit the ball into the net, you don't want to look the ball in the net, because it reminds you that you hit the ball in the net. So if you just turn around, turn away from the table, there is also a movement component, it really helps you to move on. And also I want to highlight as well, I'm sure that lots of players realize when they are get frozen, or when they're not doing so well during the match, they don't move. So just moving, and also saying to yourself, just focus and move on the next point, and encouraging yourself, it helps you to move on.
Brilliant. Well, so another kind of group of questions that quite a few people were asking similar things, is to do from not playing as well in tournaments and competitive matches as they do in practice. And one question from Marv Anderson was that he's still learning to play, but he finds that the techniques that he's able to do well in practice, he's just not able to apply into his matches. And this seems to be so common. I'm just wondering, from a sports psychology point of view, what advice you'd have to players that feel like they're competent and they can do everything well in practice, but then when they get into the match situation, it's just not happening for them.
Yes, it's a difficult one. What I think what would be really useful is first really knowing what's happening. Are they too nervous, or they are too mellow when they're playing, or so what's causing them? Are they thinking about other things and they can't really focus on the match, or not moving? So would be good to know what's happening in their mind first. So it would be basically writing down what's happening during the match, and afterwards also would be great to create them, for example, pre-performance routines before the tournament. I think that can be also really useful. And the other useful techniques, what can be really good is use visualization. Visualization, basically running a movie in their head and really visualizing how they would play in a tournament, like in a practice.
Okay, so they're getting themselves used to what it's going to be like playing in the tournament.
Yes.
So that then it's less of a shock, less of a surprise when they're actually there.
Yes. Yes, it's correct. That would be really, really good. But how I said, it would be important to know what's happening exactly the tournament.
Yeah, trying to become aware of why you're not playing as well. So is it kind of a technical thing? Is it nerves? Is it just the conditions? Yeah, I mean, it could be all sorts of things, couldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And after that, if they would start practicing in their mind, so that's why they could use visualization. Could be useful techniques, because basically when they are visualizing it, they get used to the situation just by visualizing it. And also I think there is a negative circle, because now they it's almost like a self-belief now and a self-fulfilling prophecy now, because now they are already thinking that, well, I'm not going to play the tournament well because I never play well, or I can play.
Yeah.
So already there is this mindset, and it can affect their performance.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The main bulk of questions that came in were all pretty much asking the same thing, which is kind of about dealing with nerves. So we had questions from Simon, Julian, Callum, Duncan, Mark, loads of people, all pretty much asking the same thing. I'm going to read out Simon's question because I think this one really kind of summed it up. Simon wrote, "I'm so frightened of playing badly that I end up playing badly. Even in the warm-up, I look like I'm a complete beginner. My feet don't move, my arm goes rigid, and I lose the plot. The thought of playing like this makes me physically sick. It only happens with matches, generally, although sometimes I struggle with the warm-up as well. I can go in and just start hitting corner to corner, but my hand doesn't seem connected to my brain. Half an hour later, it's fine again, but by then I may have lost the match." So this is the idea of being so nervous and so anxious that you feel like you've lost the ability to play at anywhere near the level that you would normally be able to play at. You feel like you're a complete beginner. You can't get any shots on the table. Like your body feels stiff, and how can we deal with this? Because I know that lots of players struggle with this. They do all the training, they get there early, they try and get a good warm up, but they just kind of have this mental block where they feel like at the tournament they're just not able to play at all.
Yeah, so the problem is that when in this situation, when he steps at the table, he's already defeated.
Yeah.
Even the match hasn't started yet, physically and mentally as well. I mean, that just reading this, I'm so frightened of playing badly that I end up playing badly. Well, he's already afraid of that, and he's already saying that. So he's even so nervous that he is physically, he doesn't feel well physically as well. So what he could do is, first of all, what would be really important is to change this mindset that I'm so afraid of playing badly. He can't say these things to himself before the match. He has to write down what he wants to feel, not what he's afraid of. So basically, focus his attention how he wants to feel, even before the match, than what he's afraid of. And what can also help in this situation, just recall a good match from his memory, that feeling. Again, visualization can help to do that. Also, listening music before the match, and also what I said. What's important, he has to say to himself how he wants to feel and what he wants to do, not what he's afraid of.
So you're almost trying to like take control of your own emotions instead of being
yes, exactly,
a victim
emotions
of...
and basically self-talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Mark's question was very similar. He was basically saying that when he gets a lead and he's winning a match, he often chokes, he tenses up, and then he loses the match. But you think that's all kind of a similar thing. It's the idea that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, that if you think that you're the type of player that when you start winning, you always choke and then you always lose, then it becomes, you just see it happening more and more.
Yes, it's absolutely. Whatever say to yourself, it affects your performance. So when you play, there is mental, emotional, and physical components, and you can control basically your thoughts. You can control your body language, your movements. What I told you, it helps to really release the tension, and your breathing, and it affects it has an effect on your nerves. So all these things are related. But of course, it's really important that don't defeat yourself before you step to the table.
Yeah. So if someone comes up to you and says, Dora, I always play really badly whenever I enter a tournament. How can you help me? Really, it's about reframing the belief that you believe that you always play really badly when you go to a tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that would be the first step, because whatever you say to yourself, that it's basically going to become true.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Brilliant. It's been amazing talking to you, Dora.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really good to talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I've never done kind of a Q&A with questions before, but I think that's worked really well, especially for your area of expertise. Are players able to hire you for private coaching or to come and do workshops at their clubs? Is that kind of something that you offer?
Yes, I offer that, but I'm kind of a transition now. So, but absolutely, I offer that.
You say you're kind of transitioning now. What are you transitioning to?
Well, I don't want to talk about it so far, but yet. But I will let you know when there is everything is basically settled.
Okay, it's a secret.
It's not a secret, but want to be sure and finalize it till I would like to state it. So
okay, that's fine. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to finding out more about that. And yeah, your website's dorakurimay.com.
Yes, it's correct.
And you're also on Twitter and LinkedIn and a few other things. Just search for Dora Kurimay.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dora.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
It's been great talking to you.
It was great talking to you as well.
Okay. See you soon.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
A huge thank you to Dora for joining me on this episode of the podcast. And thank you as well for answering some of our questions from listeners. That was a really great way to practically look at how you can tackle specific problems that I guess all table tennis players have, dealing with things like nerves in particular. I really enjoyed everything that we spoke about in regards to deep breathing and going through those exercises with Dora. I think that's something that I'm definitely going to try and work on, because I can see how mastering the art of deep breathing would be so powerful in those situations where you just feel a little bit nervous in a match, or you feel like you're not quite in control, things are slipping out of your grasp, or maybe you're getting really frustrated, you're getting really angry because you're missing shots. If you can just take a few seconds to calm yourself down, turn away from the table, focus on doing a few deep breaths, so in through your nose, filling up your belly, out through your mouth, I think that could be a really great strategy for dealing with all sorts of different problems. So I'm going to be trying that out. I suggest that you try out some deep breathing too, and yeah, let me know how you get on with that. experttabletennis.com/episode 24 is where you'll find the show notes. That's the same for all the previous episodes as well. Please subscribe to the show. If you're listening on iTunes, you can leave us a review, and you can use the Facebook and Twitter buttons to share this episode with your friends if you think that they're going to enjoy listening to Dora's interview. I'll be back with another guest next Friday. I will see you in a week's time. Thank you very much for listening to the Expert Table Tennis Podcast.